Angela, look at this. Come here. I mean, this is just what this room needed. I mean, something big, something bold, something that says a winner lives here, huh? What do you think, Angela?
I hate it. I hate the table. I hate the trophy. I hate the little man holding the little bowling ball. And most of all, I hate your shirt.
Please, be honest.
Hi. Welcome back to AOA, the Who's the Boss podcast. That was right. I'm Tori.
And I'm Kevin. What was wrong with it?
I don't know.
It didn't sound any different than the last time.
And then they never sound good. I'm waiting for the day where Tony Danza just comes through my body and it sounds really good.
Pardon me?
That didn't sound right. Okay. So we already said that. I'm Tori. You're Kevin. We are here to rewatch and discuss every single episode of Who's the Boss. We don't have any news.
Oh, but that's a shocker.
But I did get a listener.
I even look. I know you look, but
yeah, I mean,
once in a while I'll scan the dark web, see if I can find something.
Yeah, I mean, like I have a news alert set up for Judith Light because that's who I'm really hoping we'll hear news from soon, and then I follow Alyssa on most of her social media platforms.
And again, she's trying to save the world.
You're right. So I'm sure I'll see something when it happens, but yeah nothing so far. But we got a listener message from the last episode, Jonathan Plays Cupid, and we were both very upset that we never got a resolution to the golf storyline that was brought up.
Right.
But someone wrote and said, well, there wouldn't have even been a golf tournament because it was February. And it was most likely snowing and none of the golf courses would be open anyway. So that's a really good point.
Oh, yeah. I guess they closed the golf courses up
yeah,
north.
In places where it snows and they have to actually weatherproof stuff in the winter time. Yeah, I'm sure there would be no golf because you can't play golf with snow on the ground. So maybe they were just getting ready really early, and in the reboot, we're going to get this golf tournament.
Right, that's what they were saving it for.
Right, it was for a long time from then, which is why Jonathan wanted Tony to marry Angela.
So I could play golf with him 35 years later.
So the episode we're going to cover today is Season 2, Episode 19. It is Losers and Other Strangers. This episode first aired on February 25th, 1986, and the TV Guide summary says, Angela refuses to attend an awards party because she lost Best Commercial of the Year to a former employee. This episode was written by Seth Weisbord, and I looked him up. So I'm going to just say right now that I do not like this episode.
Just get it out.
Yeah, not one of my favorites. We'll go over why, but
I'm with you on that.
So I looked to see what else. I know I was actually dreading. It's not often that I'm like dreading covering an episode, and this one I'm just like, can we get to the next one, which is cute. So, but he wrote another episode called Sex, Lies, and Exercise Tape, which I believe is in season 5, and that one I really like. So, just this one didn't sit well with me, but that one is a good one, so I'll be excited for when we get to that one.
In 5 years.
So when this episode opens, Jonathan is shining up Tony's bowling ball, and Samantha's encouraging Tony to come out and show them his moves. So Tony is practicing, he's like doing a pretend bowling move in the living room because he's getting ready to go to a bowling tournament that night. So he comes out, he's all dramatic, he shows off his throw, he's pretending it's going down. Which apparently
is, he runs 20 feet.
Right, you start running from the kitchen, and then when you get to the stairs, then you throw the ball.
Right, which you don't do, it's like 4
That's going to be hard to do in an actual bowling alley, because you're going to have to run from like the concession stand, then down the little steps, around everybody, and then get to the alley.
I feel like Tony Micelli would do that, though.
He would, though, yeah. So he pretends that the ball hits the pins, and then Sam's like, oh, you left the 10 pin. But no, in his little imagination,
bouncing.
It's going over, and then it falls. And Tony does a little dance because he's so excited.
And some clapping.
Right. Now he shows off his shirt, And then the shirt is Dr. Whitner's drill team. So if we remember, Wendy Whitner, her husband, Herb, is an orthodontist.
Oh, good continuity.
Yes, so this is his bowling league. Now, we're not going to see Herb in this episode because I'm pretty sure we never meet Herb. But this is, again, a reference to Herb, who is the husband that Wendy doesn't love.
Poor Herb.
Now,
he just gets trashed.
Sam makes fun of his shirt, and he's like, well, it's Herb's team. Plus, he's the best bowler on the team, and he bought the shirt. Yeah. So,
foreshadowing.
So Mona comes in the back door, and now I'm pretty sure this is, out of the last 4 episodes, this is the 3rd time we've seen Mona make an entrance in a ball gown.
Yeah.
Yeah, it happens in this episode.
And it's always with a twirl.
It happened in When Worlds Collide.
Yeah.
And it happened in The Babysitter when they wanted her to babysit.
Okay, yeah.
So they were really like...
And every one of them, I'm pretty sure she comes in and then does the twirl.
Right.
To completely show.
Yes. Yeah, she even has a little riddle or poem about everyone in scruffy attire. Mona is here for all to admire.
Yeah.
And she twirls. So we set up that Mona is going to Angela's advertising awards ceremony. So Angela has been nominated for a Maddie Award.
A Maddie.
Yeah, and so Mona will be going with her to the ceremony. And she's still really tempted to go with Tony to the bowling league because he's like, well, you can either go have a glamorous dinner, you can hang out with some guys, drinking beer and sweating all over bowling balls. But that does sound, enticing to Mona. But she already promised Angela she was going to go, and Angela's going to mention her in her acceptance speech. And Tony says, you read it? And she says, I wrote it. Mm-hmm. This is the same woman who did not mention her daughter in her college graduation speech. Just want to put that out there.
You're right.
So Mona's more excited, though, about the party after the awards ceremony. Now, Angela comes down in her gown. And I actually kind of like this dress. Like, it is not at all a dress that we would really see today. I could see a variation of this dress.
Yes.
On a red carpet today. The top is a little bit large, and for some reason she's wearing the heart of the ocean around her neck. But
she is.
The back of Judith Light has an amazing back, and they like to show it off. And the back of the dress is completely open, and it's very pretty. And then it just looks very heavy and warm. But I guess it is February, so. It is sort of like a winter style dress.
Well, this episode came out in February. We don't have confirmation that it's actually February.
I think they normally follow the timeline because
That's
Thanksgiving
true, because
was around
Christmas is
Thanksgiving.
Christmas
Yeah.
Well, and that would explain the golf episode. Yeah.
Yeah. So wearing my notes. Okay, so Tony, as she comes down the stairs, Tony's going through this whole spiel about how she's been nominated for this award and she's going to win it, and he wants her to say a few words to everyone, and she just says, it was an honor just being nominated.
All right.
And
which becomes a theme.
Yeah, and Mona's like, can the humility, you want this, you want it so bad you can taste it. And Angela's like, I'm not that competitive of a person. And Mona says, you've never gotten over the spelling bee you lost in the 3rd grade. So,
immediately, Mona brings up bad memories.
Right, of course.
Always.
And Angela's like, well, it wasn't fair because I got forsythia and Beth got chrysanthemum. What 9-year-old can spell forsythia?
Yeah.
And Jonathan immediately spells forsythia. So I feel like this is probably one of the... I guess we've seen references all along the way that Jonathan's really smart, right?
Yeah, I for sure. He's good with money.
Right, and he has a really good memory. Because that's going to continue on through this series.
Yeah.
So Tony says,
yes.
Don't worry, you don't have to know how to spell to be an advertising
I know, which is, what does that mean? Yes, you absolutely have to know how to spell, no doubt about it, to be an advertiser. I mean, that's it's probably
I
part
would
of the
think
gig,
that's
is spelling, right?
Yeah, it's pretty much one of the first requisites, is you would need to know how to spell words.
To be an advertising genius. So keep that in mind. You could be an advertising genius and not know how to spell. No big deal.
Yeah. But Tony is going on and on about how wonderful her campaign was for rat poison. And it's these little rats on motorcycles. Rodent Road Warrior. So
it's just Rodent Warrior, I think.
Oh, Rodent Warrior, yeah. So this is a call to the movie Mad Max Road Warrior, which came out in 1981. So that would have been a reference that people would have really gotten.
At the time.
Yeah. Now, not so much.
I love that movie.
Yeah, I remember watching it. I just remember...
The original of the Mad Max. I say the original, but I think it's actually Mad Max 2.
Huh.
It's actually, I'm doing my research. Not to dive too much into it. Mad Max 2 was released as a Road Warrior in the United States. It's a 1981 Australian post-apocalyptic action film. So there is a part 1. And I think I knew that too. Like, I thought that was the first movie when I was younger watching it. I love that movie.
So when did the first one come out?
That I don't know.
Okay. And that makes sense.
I mean, that must have been the Mad Max 1 that maybe was only in Australia or something. But this one came out in America, and to me, I think to a lot of people, it was the first of the Mad Max series.
Yeah, and I wonder if it was one of the first things that Mel Gibson did. I'm going to look that up real quick.
Oh, that's a good question. I don't know.
I'll look it up if we take a break. So they ask her, how did you get a rat that looks like Mel Gibson?
I know.
So they're just bringing in a Mel Gibson reference, I guess, to really hammer home that they're talking about Mad Max.
What's funny is we watched this episode, and I heard all that, and it didn't register. Because we weren't taking notes. We were doing something. We were watching it.
Yeah.
And I didn't take notes, but I'm like, what is with the Mel Gibson? And then when we watched it again, I'm like, oh my gosh, Road Warrior. Because like I said, I love that movie. I watched it a million times as a kid when I shouldn't have been watching it, probably.
And now, like back then, Mel Gibson, the thought you get in your head when you hear the name Mel Gibson now is very different than when you heard the name then. Like, there's been some problematic episodes with him, and he is not really someone that you think about, in a positive way anymore. So, yeah, it's just interesting when we hear these old references of actors in movies. It
was one of his, yes, looking at it now, I just looked it up. It's one of his firsts.
Okay.
Before that movie was nothing. Yeah. The Hero, Cop Shop, the Sullivans.
I think what really made him famous was the first Lethal Weapon, though, right?
Really famous, yes. Yeah. But I think this movie
probably put him
on the board.
Yeah,
for sure.
So Mona goes to look for Angela's cashmere cape to wear, and so she leaves the room, and Sam says, wow, Angela, the odds are pretty good that you're going to win tonight. And Tony says, yes, definitely. And Angela says, there are a lot of other ads that were adequate. So she's not getting her hopes up. She says there's even one by Shirley Grant, who learned everything she knew from Angela and then left the company, went and worked for a competitor. And then she calls her a tramp.
Foreshadowing.
Yeah.
She calls her a what?
A tramp.
Oh yeah, that's right. I remember that.
So this is
right. I was I was like, wow.
Yeah, and this is
where it begins.
Right.
Of your hate for this episode.
Yes, my not enjoying this episode. So then Tony's like, "You're gonna win. This trophy table isn't gonna be able to hold all the trophies because I'm gonna win tonight. You're gonna win tonight." He's talking about the table behind the couch.
Right. Who says that's a trophy table?
After tonight, it is apparently going to be a trophy table.
And then never again.
Right. So the phone rings, and Tony goes and answers it, and it's Herb on the other end, and they find out that a kid bit Herb's thumb. Now this is also.
Oh, is Herb a pediatrician?
No, he's an orthodontist.
Oh, that's...
Yeah, we just talked about that.
Jesus Christ.
2.5 minutes ago.
I know. I'm sorry with the big tooth on the back of Tony's chair. I'm sorry.
And Tony's like, oh no, the thumb that was born to bowl. So this is the second time, also in recent episodes, that someone being bitten by a child has derailed their plans because
that's right.
In the babysitter couldn't babysit because a child bit her.
Man, they need to come up with a better story. There's got to be something better out there.
It definitely makes sense for the orthodontist that a child would have bit his thumb, and then he can't put his thumb in the bowling ball. So as Mona walks back into the room, she hears Tony on the phone saying, "Well, how swollen is it? Well, why did you stick it in there?"
Right.
And Mona's like, should the children be hearing this?
Of course.
So really the only reason why Mona went to look for a cashmere cape is so that she could come back in and have that line.
And have her Three's Company moment where she misunderstands what's going on.
So now that Herb is out, Tony doesn't want to play. He's like, there is no reason for us to go to this. We are going to lose. And Angela's trying to talk him into it. And he's being very petulant and like, no, I'm done. I'm not going to waste my time. And Angela's kind of like nodding towards the children, like, Tony, come on. And he's like, what does that mean? And Samantha says she doesn't want you to show a bad example in front of the children. So they talk him into it, and she's like, it doesn't matter whether you win or lose. You do your best, and then whatever happens, you just take it with dignity and grace. And he's like, okay, fine, I'll bowl. So the doorbell rings, and it's now time for Mona and Angela to leave. The limo driver has shown up. Immediately, Mona's attracted to him.
Of course.
She introduces herself as Mona, and this is Angela, my sister.
My sister, yeah. That was great.
Which is funny, too, because originally that part was supposed to be Angela's sister, but then they made it her mother. It wouldn't have been played by Katherine Hellman, but the part was. Yeah. So they leave. Mona tells Tony, keep it out of the gutter, and Tony says, you too, Mona.
That was funny.
So the kids are home alone. So I guess now they just let the kids stay home. Things went well with the babysitter episode enough.
It did, but it didn't. But yes.
Yeah, but they're like, we're all leaving, so you'll be fine. Grover's babysitting. So Grover's back.
Oh, poor Grover.
It is nice to see him in this one little part here. So Jonathan, who immediately likes to just do random odd things as soon as everybody leaves.
I thought that was like anytime the parents leave, he does weird stuff.
Right. So he's putting curlers in Grover's fur, because he wants Grover to look nice. Oh, wait a minute. Okay, hang on. So he's putting curlers in Grover's fur because he wants Grover to look nice when Mom brings home the trophy.
Right.
In The Babysitter, he had been blow drying his gerbil's hair because he wanted the gerbil to look nice, or hamster, for when the babysitter came over.
Oh.
So this is a theme with Jonathan.
He likes the animals to have nice
right. He wants the animals to look nice when people come over. So the limo pulls up and they're like, oh, they're back. So they turn on this like celebratory music. Oh, again with you.
I know, I kept hitting my microphone. I'm sorry.
They turn on this celebratory music to welcome Angela, who they hope is going to be holding a trophy when she comes in. So she comes in, they're like, where's the trophy? Was it great? Was it fabulous? How was it? And she just says, it was an honor just being nominated.
Right, which immediately tells you what happened. Right.
And they're like, oh, you didn't win. And Mona says, even worse, she lost to Shirley Grant.
Oh, boy.
And then...
Not Shirley Grant.
Somebody calls... Oh, yeah. Either Mona or Angela says, that cow. So the fat jokes are really bad in this episode. And...
Not to mention that... Well, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, just overall in this episode, a lot of characters are acting very out of character. And, like, Angela is being, like, super mean and just kind of petty. And I just don't think that it puts forth a very good storyline for kids or adults even here. But the thing about characters is they are going to be flawed, and you can't expect them to be perfect. So, these are showing probably an exaggeration of what you feel in the moment. So she's acting probably a way that a lot of people want to act when something like this happens to them, because it's funny and they're showing the extreme emotions to get a reaction.
Yeah, like the lashing out.
Yeah, but overall, I just feel like, it seemed... And we'll get into this a little more once we actually get to the party. But the amount of fat jokes in this episode is really bad. And just like calling women a tramp or a sow or a cow, all that stuff. But it just seemed it was acceptable back then. And it seemed even more acceptable as long as the person wasn't really fat, which we'll get to. Which has always been what's happening with Angela.
Of course.
It's like it's okay to make fun of Angela for being fat because she actually isn't fat.
Right.
And it was okay to make fun of Monica about being fat because she wasn't fat anymore. And even when they were making fun of Carol on Growing Pains and stuff, Carol wasn't fat, the actress wasn't fat. But the message that comes home is the same whether or not you're making fun of someone who is fat or not. And
interesting.
I think it's even worse when children see this being presented like, oh my gosh, if they're making fun of that person.
And that, considering that they're fat.
Right.
What am I?
Then, right. So it's just something that I think we've learned much more now with television that just wasn't an issue back then. Or at least it wasn't in the spotlight for being an issue. So Tony comes in at the worst possible moment.
I know. It couldn't be any worse.
And he's holding a gigantic bowling trophy tournament.
Like the most ridiculous
bowling
trophy you've ever seen.
Trophy, yes. So he says that he bowled a 240. He had more strikes than a New York City sanitation worker.
I know, which I looked up because I thought maybe that was a thing that the sanitation workers really... I guess there were a lot of strikes, and maybe they were minimal, but the only thing that I could find was that there was a huge strike in 1968. Mm-hmm. It was the New York City garbage strike of 1968, and trash was piled up all over the streets.
Really? Oh,
yeah, they were striking for a long time, and it went on forever.
So,
but like other than that, I don't think.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how.
I didn't live there, so I don't know. Maybe there were several.
I don't know how national, like we would have heard about it back in those times. I do feel like it is a joke or it is I do feel like it's always been a joke or some like reference to the fact that they would strike a lot.
Right.
But the other thing too is that Tony Danza's father was a sanitation worker, so he probably maybe would have known.
Yeah, I couldn't find much on like how much there was strikes, but I know in 1968 there was a big one.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it was like they were saying it went on for weeks and trash piled up outside people's homes.
In The Sopranos, isn't he in sanitation? And they make
all the mafia
references to that. Yeah, that was like there were a lot
of
of mafia ties. And I wonder, is that just a TV thing or is that real?
No, I think that's real.
Oh, really?
That's a real thing.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
So Tony sees the congratulations sign on the, and he's like, "Oh, how did you guys know? That's so nice." And then they remind him, "Oh, that's actually for Angela."
Right.
He's like, "Oh, I totally forgot. Angela, congratulations. Where's the Maddie?" And she says, "It was an honor just being nominated."
Mm-hmm. There's that again.
And he's like, "Oh, no, you didn't win." And Mona says, worse than that, she lost. And then Jonathan says, "To a cow."
I know.
So now we've even got the children and calling women
involved
cows.
in that.
Yeah. And again, she says, "It was an honor just being nominated." So Tony says he's sorry, and Angela says, "It's fine. I'm looking on the bright side. I have my health, I have my family, I have my home, I have my friends." And Mona says, "You've got everything but a trophy."
Mona, always.
But I think it's cute that she was, I mean, I feel like she's saying when she has her family that she means them and not they're her friends. Mm-hmm. I got the impression that she was saying they were her family, which I thought was cute.
Yes, I did too.
Yeah.
I got that same exact impression.
Because she kind of like gestures to both kids.
Right,
yeah. Right. So Tony's like, "Okay, well, my trophy is your trophy." He's like, "We can share this trophy." And she's like, "Oh, it's lovely. It's wood and plastic, and there's even a little man with a bowling ball." And they're like, "This is enough trophy. Any more trophy than this, and it would have been too much trophy." So,
right.
So Sam wants to hear all about the bowling.
For some reason.
Right. And I just thought this was funny because, like, if you have between a 10 and 13-year-old kid.
No.
Do you think, I mean, you come home, it's like you don't exist.
I come home from work and I could walk in this house and the kids would not. I mean, maybe our youngest, because sometimes she's like, "Hi, Daddy," but I think there's been times where I've left for work, and the oldest was like, "Where's Daddy?"
Right.
Like 5 hours later.
Right.
They don't even know or care.
I just think it's funny that the 13-year-old cannot wait to hear all about this bowling tournament that her
be
dad
up on the
did.
phone
Right.
back in the 80s anyway, doing something else.
And Tony's like, well, I'll tell you all about it, but right now these ladies have to go to a party.
Right.
And Angela's like, oh, it's been a long day. I think I'm good. I don't really feel like going. So Mona's like, does that mean that I could make other plans? And the doorbell rings. And Jonathan's like, how does she do that?
It's funny.
And it's the limo driver again. So she's leaving to go out with the limo driver now. And Angela's like, oh, you really are going to go out? And Mona says, life and the good times do go on. Thanks, Mom.
Yeah, exactly.
Always there for her.
Yeah, see ya.
So Sam still wants to hear more about the bowling tournament. But Tony doesn't really want to in front of Angela. But Angela encourages him to go on. She's like, these things happen. I'm totally fine. Let's hear what happened with your bowling tournament tonight. Tony goes into this long, drawn-out story about the night. And he can see that Angela's getting a little uncomfortable. So he's like, I'll finish this later. But Angela's like, no, please, go on. So he says that it was the last frame, and he threw the ball so hard that the pins jumped out of the way.
I know. They were terrified.
Yeah, and so he got a strike, and he won. And Sam and Jonathan are all excited for him. So he picks up the trophy, and they're like, let me see it on the table. Oh, and I noticed in this part, it's really quick, but if you notice when Tony Danza picks up the trophy, part of the little, wing or something on it gets caught in his shirt.
Oh, yes, I remember
But he,
that.
very smoothly just takes it out of his shirt without missing a beat. So they want to see the trophy on the table, and he looks at Angela again. He's like, is that okay? And she's like, of course. So Sam puts the music back on that she had for Angela, and Tony is doing this dumb, dramatic walk over
like
to the table.
Yeah.
So he sets it down on the table, and Angela's mood is quickly going downhill. So he's like, oh, it's so beautiful. This is very much like the father with the leg lamp in Christmas Story.
Yeah, it is.
So, okay.
No, I'm sorry. I was going to say what's funny is that just thinking about like what Angela's comparing this to, like her career in advertising and all that, like it means so much, and it's a bowling.
I know.
Like he won a bowling trophy and she didn't quite win a Maddie,
right?
Like whatever,
right?
It's just funny.
It comparison. Is, yeah. The comparison is definitely
it's a
funny.
bowling trophy.
And,
let him have it. The guy, the guy cleans the house for a living. Let him have it.
And of course, any other night she would have been super excited for him and very happy. She probably still wouldn't want that monstrosity in the living room.
Night.
But it had to be on the same night. And I'm going to go a little deep here with why I also think that Angela is so upset, because when she comes home and when she's upset, Tony is there to make her feel better. And that's what he normally does. Like, if this was any other night, he would have had her in the kitchen with some ice cream.
That's true.
And just totally help.
But it was his night.
Right. But because he also had something that night, she was embarrassed and upset. And then she came home and she didn't have that comfort that she thought she would, I guess, or that she normally has.
He won big.
Right. And he was in this mood. So I think
even though Herb wasn't there, they won.
Right.
He picked up where Herb would have left off.
Yes. Yep. He was the shining star that night. What did they say? They gave him the strike. I don't know. They called him something. I don't know. He got...
Strike Micelli.
Strike Micelli.
It's the only thing I remember. He was Strike Micelli.
So he drags...
Which isn't very clever.
No. So he drags her over to the table.
I know. And this is where it gets ugly.
Yeah. And he's like, isn't it beautiful? And she says, I hate it. I hate the table. Okay, but that's your table. So why are you so upset with the table?
Right.
I hate the trophy.
True. Good point. Yes.
I hate the little man holding the little bowling ball. And more than all, I hate your shirt.
I know. God, just coming at him.
So she picks the trophy up off the table and shoves it back into his arms. So they go to commercial.
I know, but I love that the fact that she does all that, and then he says something I would say is, he's like, well, please be honest.
Right.
Like she just tore into him, said everything she's feeling, and he's like, please be honest.
But I
Like
also
such sarcasm. I love it.
I also kind of wish that they would have just let the laugh end on Judith, because it was like they had to have Tony Danza have the last little stinger there to get the big laugh to go to the commercial. But I do love the line. I'm not the line is funny.
But be honest, it's something I would say.
But I also think that her little outburst could have been like the end of the scene. So when they come back from commercial break, he's now doing breathing exercises with her, and she's apologizing. And so now she has the Tony that she was hoping she'd come home to begin with. And he's like, it's okay. He's like, you're just upset because you lost. And, that's normal. When you win, you feel good. And when you lose, you feel bad. Like your life isn't worth living. Right. So she says she's going to bed. And Tony's like, no, you have to go to this party. And she's like, I'm new at losing, and I just want to go to bed. And he says, well, when I didn't want to go to the bowling tournament after I thought Herb wasn't going to be able to play, you got me to go, and you told me, that if I just went out there and did it, it would be good, and it was, and I won a trophy.
I know. Right? Like she encouraged him.
Yes. But she's like, well, but that's great. But there's if I go out there, there's nothing to win. It's already been lost. Like I'm just now going to this party where I'm going to feel uncomfortable all night. So he wants to tell her a story. So this is a cute parallel to the, when he had the problem with Samantha and she told him the cello story. Now he's going to tell her a story. Right. So he says, when he was 12, he had a good friend named Philly Cartuccio.
Oh, Philly Cartuccio.
And a week before Philly's big birthday bash, he stole Tony's girlfriend, Bambi Mistracco. Bambi Mistracco was gorgeous, and she was nice, but mostly she was gorgeous.
Yeah. More than she was nice, she was hot.
So he was very upset, but he went to his party anyway. And Angela says, and that made you feel better? And he says, yes, well that, and I let the air out of his bike tires.
Yeah, foreshadowing.
Right. So that's his story to get her to go to the party. She says that she doesn't want to face...
But it works, kind of.
Yeah, it takes a little more.
Right.
She doesn't want to face all those people. And he's like, all of those people or Shirley Grant? And Angela says, I have nothing against her. That's Sal. Mm. And so he's like, okay, great. Well, then go show them that even though Angela doesn't have a Maddie, she's got class. She thinks about it for a minute, and then she blows a raspberry in his face. I know. Which is also, it's funny, you see Tony, like, kind of touch his face a little bit, but he doesn't, like, really wipe it off. So she tries...
But I also feel like a lot of this goes back to Angela, like, acting like a child again. Like, there's a moments in this show where she just resorts to acting like a child. And this is, I think, is one of them. Yeah,
like if he hadn't pulled her out of this tonight, the next morning she probably would have been in those pajamas sulking all day, eating or getting sick or something, because that also happens to her when bad things happen.
Right.
But, yeah,
she would have been in a child's nightgown with pigtails.
Yeah. So she tries to go to bed again, and he's like, fine, go to bed. I don't care. And she's like, okay. And he's like, oh, okay, I do care. And he says, you're the president. People look up to you, so you really need to go and, like, set a good example. And she, again, like, it's not really happening for her. So he's like, okay, fine, I'll go with you. And she's like, what's that going to do? And he's like, well, I mean, they know you lost, but this way they won't think you couldn't get a date.
I know.
So,
right, like, they won't think you're a total loser.
Right. So Tony must go quickly get on his suit. Next thing we see is they show up to the party, and Angela immediately wants to leave. He's like, you haven't even talked to anyone yet. Just go in and be sincere. And she says, I don't think I can. And he's like, it's easy. You just fake it. So Angela says, hello, congratulations. It's so good to see you, to the first person she sees. And Tony's like, this is a waiter. You can still say congratulations to the waiter.
Like, why not?
Right. So then in walks a man named Charles Brighton. He's played by Frank Schuler. I couldn't really find anything that you would know him from, but you know, he did some character acting in the 80s and 90s. She says that he is the president of Brighton and Bartholomew. And Tony's like, okay, go talk to him. And she's like, oh, he's annoying, you know, on a good day. So he's like, well, this is the perfect time to get in there then. So she's like, oh, Charles. And he says, oh, Angela, you're the last person on earth I expected to see here.
Right out of the gate, he's obnoxious.
You lost big. Yeah.
Right.
So she's like about to go a little Brooklyn on him. She's like, Chuck. And then Tony reels her in and she just says, oh, give my best to Phyllis and the kids. So Tony, from this nice show of class and grace, he awards her his imaginary class award.
Imaginary class award.
So as they're standing there talking, they see Shirley Grant. And she's like, there's Shirley Grant, that heifer.
Again.
I know.
Just attacking.
Yes.
And then once you see Shirley Grant.
Okay, so now they take a shot of a woman who is a bit overweight.
Yeah, this is bad.
And they focus on this woman as Angela saying the rest of the lines. And again, I just feel like that poor actress, like they just have a casting call for a woman that they can, like, we need someone a little overweight, a little short, and we're just going to make fun of, you're the butt of the joke for this scene.
You'll be in about a minute scene, and we're going to make fun of you.
You're not going to have a line.
I guess she got paid. What are you going to do? So
she says, how
the
a woman
has thick ankles, she said at one point.
Yeah, she says, how a woman with no neck can be creative, I don't know.
That doesn't make any sense, but...
Right. And then she's like, well, she has a neck, but it's short, which is usual for women with thick ankles.
Right, the thick ankles. That's where it comes.
So, yeah. I just feel like Angela's a bit out of character here, but it was a different time, whatever. So she's just, like, really just laying into this woman. So Tony is like, I'm talking to the board, and we're thinking about taking away your class award now because you're not being very nice.
It's just right, exactly. And he's right.
And she's like, no, I can handle this. I was just temporarily blinded by the hefty bag she is wearing.
Oh God.
Okay, so now Tony decides he's going to go up to the woman that he thinks is Shirley Grant, and he's going to congratulate her.
Right.
So he walks up to the two women standing there and approaches the slightly shorter, overweight woman that's standing with Shirley Grant.
Right.
And says, congratulations, I want to congratulate you on your award. Great job. And the woman behind him says, oh, thank you.
Right.
So the woman behind him is Rita Wilson.
Right.
Who... she's known for Sleepless in Seattle.
Being Tom Hanks' wife.
Yeah, I know. I didn't want to...
I'm sorry.
I don't want to say Tom Hanks' wife as, like, the first thing. Because, she also has produced and done a lot of stuff herself.
Oh, no, I know.
But
okay.
at this point... this point in her career, she had been in a few episodes of TV... most notably an episode of Bosom Buddies where she first met Tom Hanks. Mm-hmm. And then she was in an episode of Three's Company and stuff. But I read a bit about them, and she and Tom Hanks didn't start dating until they then met again on another movie in 1985 called Volunteer.
Oh, okay.
And then they started dating. And then they got married in 1988. But yeah, so she's
by
also...
this episode,
they were dating, but not married. Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, so they've been together a very long time.
Yeah.
They're super cute too.
Yes.
And yeah, so she also helped produce My Big Fat Greek Wedding.
That's right.
I guess
I remember that when we watched it. I think we knew.
I loved that movie. Yeah, that was a really sweet movie. I think we saw that in the theater together, didn't we? I feel like we went on a date.
I feel like we watched it on video.
Well, I think we have watched it after that, yeah.
Yeah, you might be right. We probably did see it.
But yeah, I guess I was reading that when she read the script, it really spoke to her because she has a very Greek family. Greek and Bulgarian Muslim is what her father was. So, yeah, she just really loved the idea. Now...
And Tony realizes that clearly she's not a cow.
Right.
Heifer.
So again, we're going to say this is acceptable to make fun of, even though it's terrible because they're completely pointing out a person and then it's this...
It'd be one thing if the other lady wasn't
right, it would still be bad if the other woman wasn't there.
But it wouldn't be as bad as it is.
Yeah. So... now Tony's like, oh, hi, Shirley Grant.
He's like, hey, wait a minute.
My name's Tony Micelli. Yeah. And now I also want to say too, and I probably should have mentioned this in When Worlds Collide, that I mean, they don't really feel like they made fun of Pee-wee's character really for being heavy. More, they make fun of him as like being sloppy. But I also feel like a lot of times heavy characters are stereotyped as sloppy.
Yes.
For that, in the same respect. And the fact that his name is Pee-wee, and then the fact that there's another large man who's named Tiny, I think those also just like, I don't know, we should just stay away from that kind of.
Right. And also, yeah, just the joke of like the name is like they're small, but they're not.
Right.
Pee-wee, Tiny.
So yeah, I should have mentioned that also, because it's
thing.
not just women. It does happen with men characters also.
Yes.
Okay, so Shirley goes up to Angela, and she's just genuinely excited, and she's very thankful, and you can tell that she's kind of in awe of Angela to begin with. And I also noticed that her award looks like kryptonite.
I know. What is that? I thought the same thing. I was like, what is it?
It's like they went in the prop
Fortress
room.
of Solitude.
Right. They found like an old piece of kryptonite, and they glued it onto a base. And
Here,
like,
this should
work
be the
for
award.
The
this is
Maddie.
beautiful.
This is good.
So ridiculous.
So as they're talking and Angela congratulates her, a reporter comes by and asks Shirley for an interview. So Shirley walks off with the reporter. And Angela's very excited that she did it. And Tony is excited for her. And then Angela makes a mean comment about her shoes.
Of course.
So now we cut to a little later in the party. And we get horny Tony is back. So he's hitting on some...
Tony.
He's hitting on some woman at the party. And it's this very attractive blonde lady. And he asks, so are you in the ad game too? And she's like, yeah, maybe you've seen my latest commercial for Super Wax Floor Shine or something like that. And he's like, oh yeah, is that the one with the great pair of legs? And it's funny because like Tony would see a commercial for floor wax, you know, like he's their target audience. And he's like, was that your concept? And she's like, no, that's my legs. And then she shows off her legs.
Right. And this woman's hair, my God.
Yeah, this is some serious
what is
80s
going on?
hair. I bet it looked good at the time, though. I mean, it obviously did.
Yeah. I mean, flashing back to my 80s self, she's hot.
Oh, you're right. Yeah. So I looked this lady up. Her name is Kelly Lynn Gitter. She has not acted in years, but we noticed that she has one credit under self, and it's an episode of Interior Therapy with Jeff Lewis. Mm-hmm. So since it was 99 cents on Amazon, and
which, by the way, was free because we like to do the get a digital dollar if you get your delivery
no
right.
rush shipping.
So we didn't no rush shipping. So we didn't pay for it.
Okay, that's true.
I don't know
but
why I
would have
feel
paid.
I need to say that.
You had to let people know you got a good deal.
Got to brag. I got to flex. I'm flexing.
And I already love Jeff Lewis. So the episode is called Panic in Pasadena, and we watched it. So Kelly does not act anymore. She is a life coach / therapist. It was a very interesting episode if you like any kind of those shows. And now I am very emotionally attached to Kelly because her kids are on it, and the storyline is that she's having trouble decluttering her home. Mm-hmm. Her office was a mess. She's almost a hoarder.
It'll give you anxiety. I mean, I when we used to watch Hoarders, I would get anxiety. I couldn't watch it because it's too much. So that's what this did to me a little bit. Anyway, sorry.
But then when they kind of dug deeper, there were some issues where she and her husband had gotten divorced, and she was having a hard time letting go. And it was just she had a lot of pain, I think, over years. So this guest star, you know, that we normally would just be like, no credits, you know, here's their name and move on. We found this episode and it was very interesting, and it was interesting to see this woman. She looks fantastic.
Yeah.
Her kids were adorable.
I know, and her kids are like trying to be very supportive, but they're just like, you got to get rid of this stuff.
Yeah,
and,
yeah.
I mean, they don't know where she's coming from.
They really wanted
and that's
to help
fine.
her.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So anyway, if you have any interest in those shows, or you love Jeff Lewis because he's just so wacky, and Zola was on it, or Zoila.
Right.
And I can't remember what his partner's name is.
I don't know either.
But he likes to make fun of her too. So
right, and that was good. I mean, it's a good show. I actually was like, I could sit here and watch another one of these. I'm like, this is a pretty. I liked him a lot. Like, so and his anxiety during that episode was because it's not. He doesn't go and help people who are borderline hoarders, so for him it was more of a stressful episode, right? That's not the normal premise of the show.
The show that I've watched with him before is called Flipping Out. And so, no, I'm not on that. But this one is called Interior Therapy. So I feel like they do deal with different kinds of clients. But this is the only episode I've ever seen. So I'm not sure. Right. But the episode's called Panic in Pasadena. And it was very good. So wherever Kelly Lynn Gitter is today, I hope she's doing well.
Mm-hmm. Because that episode,
it was like 8 years
which you didn't
ago.
mention, it was like 2012.
It was 2012, yeah.
Yeah, so it was a while ago.
Yeah, so take care, Kelly. Now I got distracted.
I get he's done talking to her.
Okay, so Angela comes back in, and she's all excited. She's looking for Tony. She had been somewhere else. And Tony doesn't want to leave Lisa. Did I mention that lady's name was Lisa? Her name's Lisa.
I think we did.
Okay. Lisa with the great legs.
Right.
He doesn't want to leave her, so he's like, stay right here, don't go anywhere. And he's like, what's up, Angela? And he's like, Angela, I was so worried about you. Yet he's still like giving Lisa eyes.
He was hanging out with Lisa. With the big hair.
Angela says that she went out for some air. And she says, guess where I found it? And he's like, where? In Shirley Grant's tires. So he's like, what? She said, I let the air out of her tires and you were right. I feel wonderful.
I know.
And he's like, what do you mean I was right? She's like, the story you told me.
I know. She took that to heart. Like, that's what you're supposed to do. You go out and let the air out of a grown person's car tires.
I know. He says, I was 12 years old. Right. And I don't think Shirley came here on a bike. And she says, no, a yellow convertible.
Yep.
So as they're having this little discussion, they announce Shirley Grant to the stage. And Angela's like, I can handle anything she says. I feel great. So the lady goes, Shirley goes up there, and Angela's like, all I hear is hissing air.
I know.
So Shirley's giving her a little speech. She's saying, thank you so much. This is such an honor. But there is one person I really want to thank. A person who embodies excellence, both as a professional and as a human being. And Angela's like, this ought to be good. And then she calls up Angela Bauer to the stage. So Angela's like, what? And Tony's like, go on up there. And she asks him, do I smell like stale air?
I know. Because she was sitting there that long, letting the air out of the tires that she may smell like old air.
And Tony's like, funny. Yep. So Angela goes up there and Shirley tells her, you taught me everything I know. This award is as much yours as it is mine.
God, the lighting is so bad in this part of the episode.
I feel like anytime
it's like floor lighting or something.
They're on a set that isn't the main few sets, they struggle with the lighting. I don't know if it's just because of where they're like...
Which I feel bad saying, because maybe, like, again, I think I mentioned in the past, somebody who's maybe did lighting on the shows because sometime listen to this podcast.
They
probably not.
They probably won't.
Good point. They probably won't.
Okay, so Shirley says to Angela, now please just say a few words. And Tony's yelling speech because Tony's always...
Because Tony's Tony.
Yeah, demure and just blends into a crowd. And so Angela says, it was an honor just being nominated.
No, of course.
So later, Tony and Angela are outside and they're talking. And Angela says, Tony, I've always been a sore loser. And I really like this conversation with them because he says to her, well, that's why you're so successful. Like, of course you don't want to lose and why you're so driven. And so, like, even though that may be a quality that you have to sometimes reel in and deal with, it also helped you get here. So it's not necessarily a bad quality. But she says, Shirley did a great job and that I should be able to recognize that.
Right.
So in the end, she comes around here. She's deciding that we should build up other people instead of just being jealous.
After acting like a child the whole episode.
Right.
And not until she's recognized on stage.
That's true, too.
Right.
Not until she realizes that she made an impact on Shirley, even though...
Then.
Yeah. Because in Angela's eyes, she taught Shirley everything she knew, and then Shirley left.
Shirley left and went somewhere else.
Right. But in Shirley's eyes, she just did what most people do, is they go to a place, they get job experience, and then to move up, you move on.
Correct.
A lot of times. So, yeah, I do like that, Angela does have she learns a lesson here. So she says, I should be able to recognize that. I should march in there and order everyone champagne, and I should toast her. And Tony's like, no, you can't. Why not?
Right.
Because it's your turn to pump.
Right, because they're pumping the tires of her car.
So they reveal that they have a bike tire, a bike pump, and they're pumping. Then they better pump fast, because how long is that party?
Oh, to pump with a bike. One of those pumps where you put your feet on the bottom and pump. Yeah, You're going to be there all night.
Yeah, there's a good chance that
Shirley's going to figure out what the hell is going on if she doesn't know already.
They're just going to come out there and see the two of them. Okay, so in the tag, Angela's coming home from work, and Jonathan says, I've been accepted to the spelling bee. So she's very excited for him, and she tells him, that's great, just... practice. And so he just starts spelling.
She says wonderful, and then he spells
everything.
Wonderful.
Right.
Stands up and he says wonderful, and then spells it.
And Mona comes in. She's like, no, do not encourage him. Then later that night, they're in the kitchen, and Tony asks him to put away the asparagus. He spells asparagus.
Right.
Sam's like, you're getting obnoxious. He spells obnoxious.
Right, which is awesome.
Yeah. Then they end with a shot of the outside of the house. And they're all saying goodnight to each other. And he's still spelling words. And somebody slams a door. And then he spells the word slam.
And that's it.
And that's the end of the episode. Okay, so I think you go first with rating this time.
Oh, I do? Or you just want me to?
I'm just going to say go.
Oh, well, fine.
You don't have to.
Not so impressed with this one. I gave it a pretty low rating, which is a 6.
Oh, wow. You went even lower than I did.
Really?
Yeah. I gave it a 6.5.
Okay. Well, that's not that much lower.
No. But
I wasn't impressed.
Yeah, it's not my favorite. It's not one that I ever think to rewatch if I want to watch a cute episode of Who's the Boss. Obviously, we've talked enough about the issues with the jokes, and I think both Tony and Angela were kind of a bit out of character. Just a little over the top, I guess.
Yes, kind of coming at each other a little bit.
Yeah.
Who's the boss around here? Me? Or my mother? Or maybe it's you!
I went with Tony as the boss for this one. I almost had a tie between Tony and Angela because she encouraged him in the beginning to go bowl even though Herb wasn't going to be there. But then I decided just to go with Tony because... he kind of helps her go to the party. At the party, he's coaxing her the whole time. And then he goes and probably is the one that found a pump to pump up the tires and made her go back out and fix her wrong. Mm-hmm. So.
Yeah, I don't have anything else because I agree with you 100%.
Nice.
I do believe that Tony was the boss as well. Just basically, even after gloating about his win, he still amped her up to go to the party. And then even at the party, he was still trying to coach her to act civil, which she didn't. Right. And then again, went and took air out of the tires and then helped her pump them up. I mean, he was always kind of in control, even though he came home as and kind of being an asshole when he won the bowling trophy. But, I mean, even after that, he realized, oh, man, I better tone it down. And he helped Angela, even though she was out of line. But
right. Hopefully,
yes, Tony's the boss.
Hopefully his reward was that he got Lisa's number.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah. Maybe Lisa. Yeah, maybe. Yeah. Who knows?
All right. Well, you can reach us at Who's the Boss Podcast on Instagram or Who's the Boss Pod 1 on Twitter. Twitter. We also have a Facebook page. It's called the Who's the Boss Podcast. Or you can go to anchor.fm/WTB podcast and leave a message about anything that you want to talk about, anything we've missed, any news you may have, but whatever. Also, there's some good conversation going on the Instagram. I feel like the most conversation that's happening are on the Instagram posts, which is fun. And then also there's a great group on Facebook called the Who's the Boss Resource, if anybody's interested in joining that. That is not our group. That's just a group that I am a member of because they have a lot of good stuff in there. All right, well, we have no song for the end. So
no.
We're just going to say goodnight. Bye.
Bye.
If you like this podcast, please subscribe and tell all your friends and give you a big pat on the back. Bye. I added some extra.